best siege equipment for the zombie apocalypse.
Number 10. Battering Rams. So the zombie apocalypse has finally arrived, and you were able to survive the first few waves of zombies. But now, you're starting to run seriously low on supplies. There doesn't appear to be many options for getting food other than getting medieval and laying siege on someone's hideout or stronghold. You never really considered yourself to be a looter before, but this is the apocalypse, and now it's survival of the fittest. Grab yourself a handy dandy battering ram and get to work. Battering rams are made in all shapes and sizes, and they're the most crude form of siege equipment that have been used as far back as 500 BC. This could be something as simple as a log capped with metal. Repeated blows will eventually lead to cracking of wooden doors. Despite its ancient roots, it's still used today by SWAT teams to plow their way into someone's house. This is one of the simplest siege weapons out there, and you can probably make one at home. However, the larger they are, the more people they take to operate, but are much more effective. Number 9. The Mangonel. It's time to bring in the artillery for the zombie apocalypse. Shotgun rounds and crossbow bolts might certainly be useful, but sometimes we just need a little bit more destruction. You might have realized the door to the place you're trying to loot was far too well barricaded or made of steel, and there just doesn't seem to be a way to get in. If you feel like getting a little bit creative and have a few extra supplies, why not try to go with something like a Mangonel? Of course, there are a few setbacks, but this equipment is fairly quiet, and it won't cause loud explosions that will give away your location. If properly aimed, you may be able to find a weak spot in the building like a glass window or a crack. You open it up a little bit bigger by launching a heavy stone at it. These were some of the first few siege weapons used, and what's great about them is that they can fire a large variety of things. However, this isn't the fastest thing on the list, but you can consider it as an option if you find a way to modernize it a tad. Number 8. The Giant Slingshot. Let's make it clear that giant slingshots might not be powerful to seriously damage zombies, but it will certainly make for a great launcher of things like Molotov cocktails or even hand grenades. This man here in the photo constructed a giant slingshot that fires with a trigger and can send a soccer ball about 100 yards. This form of launching will allow for little to absolutely no noise. Some soldiers like this guy here might even consider launching dynamite with a slingshot. They don't really seem too difficult to make, and the one we see here in this photo can actually launch water balloons 400 yards. Imagine if the projectile was something like a heavy metal ball or some kind of impact detonated explosive. You'd have yourself one heck of a siege weapon for the zombie apocalypse. With the flexibility of modern day rubber on a weapon that was used to kill Goliath, you can imagine this thing can do some damage. Number 7. Siege Towers. Medieval armies had some of the best approaches when it came to getting over walls, and we can still use these techniques during the impending zombie apocalypse. Of course, technologies have changed since then, so it's important to try your best not to get detected while using one of these, which might be a little bit difficult. Having the advantage in height will prove to be useful in many different scenarios. Consider the siege tower as being a well-armored ladder that will provide you with some cover while trying to scale a tall fence or wall. If you find a way to modernize this design with some type of car engine and are able to give it some kind of armor, you'll be able to find easy access through second-story windows where people think they're safe. The surprise that you actually constructed this thing will catch many preppers off guard. Number 6. Air Cannons. As siege weaponry began to advance around the 15th century, cannons became the best way to lay siege upon people hiding out in fortresses or whatnot. But back in those times, they didn't have to worry about attracting zombies. It's always important to try to remain as silent as possible, so using gunpowder isn't always an option. This uses compressed air, the same way as a paintball gun, to launch projectiles. This massive beast is an air cannon that entered into the contest known as the Pumpkin Chunkin contest, where people fired pumpkins not using gunpowder. These can be dangerous, so if you don't know what you're doing, be sure to study up on it carefully. The air cannons can be made to be just as large as the cannons we've seen in the Civil War, only much quieter. With enough pressure, they should be able to blast through the barricade to the place you're trying to get access to. Number 5. The Ballista. What could possibly be better for the zombie apocalypse than a giant crossbow? That's basically what the Ballista is, and it's been used for centuries as a siege weapon. Traditionally, they fire huge bolts, but like other crossbows, they can fire more circular projectiles which can cause more damage to people or buildings. What's good about this piece of siege equipment is that it'll prove to be quite effective against zombies themselves. Giving this ancient weapon a little bit of a modern twist, this man here actually mounted one on the back of his pickup truck, and you can certainly tell he's ready for the zombie apocalypse. He apparently constructed the entire thing himself, and it's much more effective than the ancient counterpart. During ancient times, they would also light the crossbow bolt on fire in order to set the buildings ablaze. Number 4. Trebuchets. Before the invention of gunpowder, the best possible siege weapon available was the intimidating trebuchet. These were often much more preferred due to their great range, accuracy, and sheer damage they can dish out with one launch. Trebuchets originate from China and use a complex system of counterweights. The enormous arm could be lowered using 2 men running around what looks like a hamster wheel. These can launch enormous projectiles, and in this photo, we see a car being launched into the sky with this medieval weaponry. If you find a way to use this to your advantage during the zombie apocalypse, you can certainly be the king of your castle. Number 3. Mortars. After trying out a few siege weapons from the Middle Ages, nothing's worked, and now finally you're willing to risk using gunpowder. The best way to go in this case would be to use a mortar. The site of the explosion would certainly draw some unwanted attention, but the original location of where the mortar was launched might still be okay. While it's certainly louder than any air cannon or catapult, it's much easier to pack and move around than a giant trebuchet. If you're firing a mortar, it's going to take a few seconds to hit the target. Before the zombies or enemy preppers realize where you are, you can pack up the mortar and move to a new location pretty quickly. We still warn you though that the noise might be a little bit too much, but it might make up for it with the extra power. Number 2. Laser Bazooka. Imagine being able to cut through a chain link fence from miles away. A YouTuber by the name of StyroPro seemingly created an unbelievable laser bazooka out of everyday items. He claims that it's 400 times more dangerous than the sun if it came into contact with someone's eyes. This was able to start fires rather easily. It was also completely silent, and it just looks totally awesome. We don't expect you to know how to make one of these, but having the proper laser beam in your hands like this guy could certainly prove to be useful. And number 1. Grenade launchers. This certainly won't be easy to come across, but if you're able to find a grenade launcher like we see in this photo with some ammunition, treat it as a valuable weapon and a decent siege weapon. Sure, you could use this thing to shoot zombies with if you really need to, but it can also prove to be a much more valuable tool to get past a locked door. Sure, it'll be loud, but it'll be fairly accurate, and it won't explode until the grenade has struck the land. The sound of the grenade coming out of the barrel is no louder than an air cannon. You'll only hear this thing once it makes contact and there's an explosion. Use these siege weapons wisely and carefully during the zombie apocalypse. Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for new videos every day.